This is an RNZ podcast.
It is time to do some watching of the media. And who better to watch the media than Mr. Midweek Mediawatch himself, Hayden Donnell, who sits opposite me, smouldering in the Auckland studio. Hello to you.
Thank you very much, Emil. There's actually a number of people that could be better to watch the media than me, but they're not here.
Like who?
Colin Peacock, for one.
Yeah, he's pretty good. All right, let's start this week with the biggest international story in the world, Hayden. This is the war in Gaza, and some local commentary on this conflict has caused something of a stir.
Yes, the platform's founder, Sean Plunkett, tweeted 4 days ago or so, "I'm really concerned about the mass outbreak of anorexia in Gaza." It's really quite hard to actually know what he's even saying there, but it appears to be that the reports of mass starvation in Gaza are somehow faked. And that was obviously pretty offensive to a lot of people. And they noted that the platform's main funder was, at least until recently, it turns out, the Right Family Trust, and that's connected to the Right Family Foundation, which is a charitable organisation, and that's connected to the childcare chain Best Start. And look, I'm not a marketing guy, Emil, but it would appear to me that perhaps it's not the best match in terms of synergies for a childcare chain to be connected to someone that is joking about the mass starvation of children.
You say it's hard to know what he's saying. Did you read that and think, wow, Sean Plunkett is... I thought it was quite clearly ironic, and I thought in very poor taste, but I thought he was being ironic when I saw that.
Yeah, well, that was what you might have thought, and this is why I wasn't sure. Was he genuinely denying it, or was he somehow making a terrible joke? But he followed it up with retweeting another account, arguing, it seems, that the children and the pictures of the children starving that we're seeing are somehow the result of sickness brought about by intra-family marriage in Gaza. So this is someone that was trying to advance this theory seriously, which is obviously not a credible theory and is wrong, is false. I might have thought, hey, he's being ironic if he didn't double down like that.
You mentioned the Right Family Foundation, which up until recently was the platform's main sponsor. And until recently, key part of that sentence, because it turns out that sponsorship, it seems, no longer exists.
Yeah, and this was, people sent emails to the Right Family Foundation, the Right Family Trust, and they were referred on to Wainwright Jr., who's the main person in their family who is backing the platform. And he said that the trust had ceased sponsoring the platform back in March after what he said was the end to its startup phase. Now, that was reported by David Farrier on his Substack Whim. He said the platform's lost its multi-millionaire funder. The Herald's media insider Shane Curry also followed this story later. He added a bit of extra context and information later that day after interviewing Sean Plunkett and Wainwright Jr.
And as it turns out, the sponsorship is over. But Wright has a new relationship with the organisation?
Yeah, so the trust stopped funding the platform back in March. It turns out this was announced to the platform's listeners, they say. But Wainwright Jr. admitted to the people complaining to him about this tweet that he's actually now the 75% owner of the platform. So he's no longer putting in his own money. He's told Shane Curry there are no other backers, there's no other investment money. It's all through advertising, subscriptions, merchandise. You could say it's a little bit tricky though, isn't it, to tell people complaining about the platform, hey, look, I'm not funding it anymore, but then not actually telling them, hey, I'm actually the 75% owner. And he also appeared with Sean Plunkett on the on his show in May, where he was described as a director and team member of the platform, and they were wearing identical red Make Media Great Again hats at the time. So I wouldn't say that he's completely disconnected from the organisation.
So that's the media news that's broken out of this. Are there any consequences, I suppose, over this tweet?
There are those calls for ad boycotts. There's people saying, why are you funding this? The Family Trust saying they're not funding it. Wainwright Jr. under pressure. Now, the Australian comedian Beck Shaw, she has been contacting the platform's advertisers. She did get a response from one, Vast Billboards, which said it's taking its advertising off the platform. Others are contacting other major advertisers like Steelfort, Insulmax, Platinum Homes. There's a bunch of them.
And this is quite significant, isn't it? Because Wright have been clear that the platform survival is not guaranteed on a financial footing.
Yeah, this is another thing that's emerged out of this. There's a few ominous words about its profits in Shane Curry's article on all this. It's essentially that sometimes it washes its face, some months it doesn't. Wainwright Jr. says, look, it's a little bit month to month at the moment. Plunkett, when asked how business is going, he said lumpy, bumpy. He said that's like all the media, though. Now, some media, it's a little bit more lumpy and bumpy than and for others.
What, if anything, is the effect that this tweet has had over the relationship between Wright and Plunkett?
Wainwright Jr., when he was contacted, he was like you. He said, I thought he was being ironic. I thought this was some sort of poor taste joke. When Shane Curry put that to Sean Plunkett, he said, hey, what do you think? Left it open-ended. So he was far less unequivocal about this being some sort of ironic statement. And look, maybe the two of them had a discussion, because this afternoon Sean Plunkett posted on X that he won't be posting on X again for the foreseeable future. And I noted as well that the Wright Family Foundation, which runs Best Start, it put out a press release this afternoon saying we've never had any link to the platform. That's not not our monkeys, not our circus kind of thing. They say this is all about Wainwright Jr. Refer all your questions to him. This is not about us and Best Start in particular.
So he's taken a pause, Sean Plunkett. He won't be posting on X for the foreseeable future, but does not seem to be, as you mentioned earlier, doesn't seem to be backing down from these comments at all.
No, in fact, he's doubled down. He shared that false theory that I mentioned earlier, and that's been echoed in a bunch of places. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's also claimed there's no starvation. Now, this is inaccurate, and the reports of mass starvation have been affirmed by a huge range of international agencies, but it's not just the aid agencies either. You have media on the ground there. The Mediawatch service, AFP, says that its last journalists in Gaza will die if the current conditions persist.
Yeah, and Al Jazeera I saw as well, its media network putting out a call for journalistic agencies to take action to prevent the forced starvation of its workers.
Yeah, and just as context, according to Watson Institute's Cost of War project, this is already the deadliest conflict ever for journalists. Now, it says 232 journalists have been killed. In 2024, 124 journalists were killed globally, and 70% of those were killed in Israel. Human Rights Watch has called this an unprecedented killing of journalists. And now Al Jazeera's statement says its journalists are starving. It has pretty harrowing testimony from its Gaza correspondent, Anas al-Sharif. It said, I haven't stopped covering for a moment in 21 months, and today I say it outright, and with indescribable pain, I am drowning in hunger, trembling in exhaustion, and resisting the fainting that follows me every moment. Gaza is dying, and we die with it. There's also a joint statement from the AFP, AP, BBC News and Reuters saying we are desperately concerned for our journalists in Gaza. They are now facing the same dire circumstances as those they are covering. They're starving.
It has been quite interesting to see how media organisations, I think around the world, have become more and more forthright in speaking out against or correcting false claims made by the Israeli government, would you say?
I think there's definitely far more of an edge to the reporting. There's far more of a willingness to be unequivocal about things that maybe people were equivocal about before. There was once an element of caution around statements from Israel directly contradicting them. Now these reports about mass starvation, Israel's denied them. That's not really credible, and it has media has been saying that that's not really credible. And just for instance, this is RNZ's morning report. Ingrid Hipkiss interviewing a Save the Children spokesperson Alexandra Sayer on Tuesday.
Look, there is starvation in Gaza. There's mass starvation in Gaza. And I can tell you that our own Save the Children staff are coming to work hungry, tired, exhausted, having not eaten for days at a time. This is what everyone in Gaza is experiencing now.
So you're getting people like Alexandra there just being straight up and down and getting a platform in the media to say that kind of thing. In general, I think the media has been a bit stronger recently in condemning the suffering and civilian killings in Gaza, but I do wonder whether it's just following the lead of power here, because far more forthright statements are also coming from world powers. You have our foreign minister joining in with a bunch of other nations to condemn the suffering in Gaza multiple times recently. Even Donald Trump has said there's real starvation in Gaza. So I wonder whether that has given our media permission to be more forthright as well.
Right. So the New Zealand media, are you talking about here, or the media more broadly is sort of following the rhetorical lead of politicians?
I think so. Like the tenor of politicians. That's possibly here in New Zealand. We're a relatively small outpost, and I think we follow the lead of larger organisations in general, and we actually receive a lot of wire copy from international sources like Reuters in general. So, our coverage has a lot of the same slant that the international coverage has, and I do wonder, are we giving the media credit here? But is this actually a failure? Why was this? Why were we not unequivocal before? Why were we unwilling to cover war crimes and civilian deaths in such strong terms before politicians essentially gave it the all clear in their own language? Were we too cautious? I heard there's Dennis Muller. He's a media ethics expert. He said the media has essentially been shamed into covering this more emphatically, unequivocally, directly by the harrowing images of starving children coming out of Gaza now. Maybe, but there's been harrowing images coming out of Gaza for years. So is it the images, or is it just that they've sort of been given permission by the widespread acceptance that atrocities are taking place? Now you feel safe to say something that you weren't safe saying before. And look, should we have waited until it felt safe in this way, that we felt like power was going to be on our side? Look, isn't the real job of the media to speak the truth?
I mean, I wonder whether it's a consequence of the war raging for a long time now. And I certainly get the sense from political figures, a sense of frustration with the actions of Israel, which they may have considered understandable to a point in the beginning, but I feel like some countries feel that the continued violence and death is getting into sort of more gratuitous territory, that countries are losing patience.
Well, that certainly seems to be the case. Our countries are losing patience.
And
but
if the media follows or takes its lead...
Why is the media taking the lead of that? It's one of those things, there's that old saying, in time everyone will have been against this. Well, should we have been against it a little bit earlier on? Because the evidence was there.
Let's move on to local politics. And, well, we got what could be called, I suppose, an announcement of an announcement earlier this week.
Yeah, this one was from ACT Workplace Relations Minister Brooke Van Velden.
What changes are you planning to make in the scaffolding area?
Well, we don't know yet, and that's the exciting part about this.
What exactly are you announcing today? Are you announcing that you're going to look into something?
We're announcing that we are consulting with the sector. And look, this might sound like a small thing for you, but I know it's really big.
That was Brooke Van Velden. I loved that line. We don't know yet, and that's what's so exciting about this. That's life, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen.
That's true.
And that is what's so exciting about it.
Show me the lie there.
Yeah. It's what could happen in future, and sometimes the government just wants to communicate that with you. You know, look, life could happen in future, and that's going to be exciting. Now, those questions were from Stuff's Lloyd Burr, Emil, and he wrote a scathing editorial about that non-announcement as well. And look, as it turns out, Brooke Van Velden has decided that the current scaffolding rules are too complex, but she doesn't know in what way yet. So she's announcing that she's consulting on changes and may announce changes in future subject to that consultation.
That's fair enough, isn't it? Isn't it?
Do you think that's fair enough?
Well, I don't know.
The last government, I don't know if you remember this, they got lambasted quite a lot for announcing announcements.
Uh-huh.
So you announce something and then there's going to be a future announcement about this is not even an announcement of an announcement.
Do you think that lambasting of the previous government's announcements was unfair?
No.
You think that was fair?
I think so.
Okay. Well, doesn't it?
What is it?
Doesn't it depend on the nature of the announcement?
What's the word? Poop or get off the pot. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's the same.
Well, no, because,
Look, this is not even an announcement of an announcement. This is an announcement of a potential future announcement subject to a positive consultation process with the sector.
But announcing the announcement might cause people who know something about this area to think, oh, wow, the government's looking at this. I'll get in touch with them because I know something about this and they might value my feedback.
Do you think that
Spreading awareness.
I guess so, Emil. It's a little bit tenuous to me that someone that would have submitted but wasn't going to be contacted somehow sees it on the news reports and then decides to get in touch. Like, you're consulting a relatively limited sector, I imagine. There would be major players and people that you could contact if you're the government. You have resources at your disposal.
Hey, what have you got against announcements about announcements anyway? You know, sometimes announcements need to be announced.
Well, there was another one recently as well where the government announced $6 billion in infrastructure is going to be started this year. And Labour called that an announcement of an announcement. But I don't think that was really that either. Those were previously announced infrastructure projects. So it was more an announcement of a previous announcement or an update of a previous announcement or maybe a confirmation of a previous announcement. And I just think it is getting a little bit out of hand, Emil, and I do have problems with it because it's a way that the government acts when it has basically nothing to say but wants to change the conversation.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they are being asked about this.
Well, are they? They're sending out a calendar invite saying we're going to talk about this particular thing at this time, and the media dutifully sends its cameras and its people along. Its
expecting
resources.
something substantial, right.
And then you've sent those people along and you don't have many people and you don't have many resources, so you can... that's another way that the government can take advantage of you. And so you're there, and so you think, well, I have to get something out of this. And look, full credit to Lloyd Burr. He treated this very skeptically. It was actually it was made for great audio. It was a great question. But it is a real lesson, right, in how you can basically be led around by the nose by the government. I can think of ways that it might have been wanting to change the conversation, potentially divert the media conversation for the day away from more prickly topics. This is one less media story about the price of butter, for instance.
So what can the media actually do about this then? Would they? So the announcement goes out, the reporters go along. It turns out to be an announcement about an announcement. Do they go up to the minister afterwards and say, This was all a whole lot
sham.
of a sham. Here I am down the garden path.
Befuddled me, good sir. Not once more.
Well, yeah, and we're not going to publish anything on this. This was a waste of your time and our time.
Well,
really?
Exactly.
Do you think
can't.
that they should? Yeah.
Maybe if you had more people and more. You could
because they've committed resource
to
it.
More resource, then maybe you could
right.
just flush something down the toilet, say that's not worth it. But you probably can't anymore because you don't have that much leeway in the system. There's no fat there, and I think that's a bit of a flaw, and that's one that the government can exploit. Right? It can just say because you can't not come along when the government says it's going to announce something.
Well, because then you might miss something.
You might
miss an announcement.
You might miss a real announcement, not an announcement of an announcement. But it means that sometimes if the government does want to change the conversation, it can just say, announce something, anything, even if it's that we might announce something in the future, and that will change, that will shape some of the coverage, and that will take some of the pressure off our back.
Government might well say, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, well, I do hate the game. And look, it's a bit of a lesson in how it is so risky to shape your news agenda by the calendar invites that political press secretaries send out, because they're not doing that altruistically. They are trying to shape a narrative. They're trying to shape the agenda for the week.
Another interesting story this week, there was a new poll on Labour's COVID response.
Yeah, this is Talbot Mills, And it asked what people thought of Labour's COVID response. 38% very good job, 25% good job. So that's 63% overall thought Labour did a good or very good job during COVID. Then there was a bunch of people in the I don't know camp. And then there was 7% saying they did a poor job, 15% saying they did a very poor job. So 23% thought bad job. So overwhelmingly, people thought they did a good job.
Overwhelmingly?
Well, 3-to-1 ratio there.
Yeah.
God,
Almost
gosh,
two-thirds.
what do you expect?
Well, I don't know whether I'd call 63% overwhelming. I'd say it's a lot, but I wouldn't call it overwhelming.
Okay.
Hyperbole on Mediawatch.
I'm well and truly rebuffed there.
I mean,
Admonished.
this would come as a surprise to a lot of people because media coverage around the Labour government's COVID response has been quite critical. Do you think?
Well, I think in general we've had more of a negative slant, particularly on that second Auckland lockdown, of course, and the stuff like vaccine mandates. There's the Royal Commission going on at the moment. Look, there's a lot of negativity around it, and it certainly did come as a shock, these results, to Heather du Plessis-Allen on News Talk ZB.
5 years on, 4 years on, we've all had the Rona. It hasn't been that bad. We're all seeing how the country's completely stuffed as a result. It surprises me. It surprises me that nearly 2 in every 3 of us still think it was an awesome job done by Jacinda. But anyway, there you go. So, don't go to a barbecue and just pipe up about how Jacinda handled it, because chances are that if there's 3 of you standing there, you're going to be the only one who thinks it was a bad job.
It depends on the barbecue, though, doesn't it, Emile?
It does depend on the barbecue. I mean, I think it would be quite interesting. There was an interesting result, this poll. I think it would be interesting to see it broken down by region.
Yeah, there's this widespread, almost received wisdom that Auckland hates Labour, or that its struggles in Auckland electorally are because of that second lockdown, and people still resent Labour. And look,
I think many people in Auckland would say Auckland's experience of the COVID years was different.
Oh, it wasn't great. My second baby was born 3 days before that second lockdown, which wasn't ideal timing in some ways. And look, maybe there's a bunch of resentment there, but I just always come back to, where is the data on that? Because I've always been struck by the mismatch in the media negativity about Labour's COVID response, the almost... it's taken as a given that they have suffered in the polls because of how they handled COVID, particularly in Auckland. But as far as I can tell, there's no poll that has actually said that. And the only ones that I've seen, including this one, I give them a good mark for their COVID response. And actually the stuff that they poll poorly on is other stuff. It's stuff like the cost of living and crime. So I kind of think I really question the received wisdom on this, and it's just another data point there.
This data was actually commissioned in quite an unusual way, as polling data is commissioned.
Yeah, according to Stuff's Luke Malpass, the owner of Talbot Mills, David Talbot, was just interested in the question, and so stuck it on the end of another poll that he was conducting.
I wonder what the question... Do you know what the question was?
Oh, no, and actually I need to...
Because that could be quite important, right? How the question is framed up is an important part of...
Yes, I don't have the exact question here. I just have that it was how Labour handled the pandemic. But I could get that for you, except for we only have a few minutes.
Yeah, we do. So,
so I kind of think that that's an amazing way to do it, though, right? It just, if you're interested in stuff, just put it on the
power
end.
of the pollster.
Yeah.
You can just,
And why don't more pollsters do that? Just, you have a personal whim, you should put it on the end of a poll. And I kind of thought, if you could ask one poll question, Emile, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, there are so many. I can't even settle on one. Do you have one at hand?
I kind of thought of what about, my passion project is, should the government bring back the supermarket Big Fresh?
Big Fresh, yeah.
But the more serious one, should we join?
What do you mean the more serious one?
Well, of course, Big Fresh is probably the most serious thing in the world to me. But in terms of a political outcome, what about joining? Would you want to join a Euro-style federation with Australia?
Huh. I mean, that would be an interesting question to see the answers to. Although you probably have to provide a lot of contextual stuff around what the impact might be and so on and so forth.
Oh, do you have to do all that?
I think you would have to.
Oh, come on.
Very quickly before we go, Hayden, less than a minute left, a really lovely story on RNZ.
Yes, this is about a man called Andrew Oliver, and he lived with a rare condition that he had the mental age of 6, and he loved milk trucks. He was about 40 years old. He wouldn't go to bed until he had seen the milk collection by Fonterra each day on his family's dairy farm, but sometimes that would be at 2 a.m, so that would be very troublesome for his dad, who had to get up at 5 a.m. that he had this son. So Fonterra changed its milk delivery times, the schedule of their milk pickup, so that he could see this milk pickup every day and then go to bed at a reasonable time. And look, Andrew recently died. RNZ went to his funeral. It's a beautiful story. I'd say seek it out.
Thank you, Aidan. Catch you in a couple of weeks.